Tadekam smaramas-tadekam bhajamah. Tadekam jagat sakshi-rupam namamah. Sadekam nidhanam niralambamisham bhavam bodhipotam sharanyam vrajamah. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. On that alone do we meditate, that alone do we worship, to that alone, the witness of the universe, do we bow. To that one who is our sole eternal support, the self-existent Lord, the raft to safety across the ocean of this world, do we come for refuge. Om, peace, peace, peace. Good morning, everyone. We have entered in the holy Navaratri, the 9 nights specially dedicated to the Divine Mother of the Universe, and that mood now is becoming palpable in our temple and in our hearts. The Divine Mother who slays the demons, and the demons put up a terrible struggle, and yet she comes, and they succumb to her infinite power. So these demons, where are they? They're here within us, and yet if the Mother is to come and slay those demons, we have to let her in. And that is in some sense, what the topic of my talk today is about, letting the Mother in to slay the demons, or ceaseless struggle and radical surrender. Life, let's face it, life is a struggle. Life, we don't want it to be perhaps, but life is a struggle. And Swami Vivekananda puts it this way: everything is conscious which rebels against nature. There, consciousness is manifested when we see something rebelling against nature. Just try to kill a little ant, he says. Try to kill a little ant. What happens? It will resist to save its life. Where there is struggle, where there is rebellion, there is the sign of life. There consciousness is manifested. So we understand that struggle is just part of life. And yet, we are, I think most of us, serious spiritual seekers. We have committed to spiritual life, and we are seekers of peace, we are seekers of joy, we are seekers of God. And yet, why is life still such a struggle? For many of us, I'm sure, and for me too sometimes, life is a struggle. I thought once we take up spiritual life in earnest, life should be pretty smooth sailing. We've dedicated our lives to God, we pray intensely, we have faith in God, we do our meditation, we repeat the holy name. Right? We should have some peace and joy. Why are we, and yet there's so much to do and not enough time to do it. And then we have conflicts in our family, conflicts with our colleagues at work, conflicts with our neighbors maybe. And of course the struggle with our own minds, the conflict within. We've got anger, envy, jealousy, anxiety, grief, depression, feeling that we're just not good enough, feeling that we just don't quite have our act together. And all of this stressful life in the context of a world that seems to be coming apart at the seams. If we look at what's going on, we have overpopulation, we have climate change now coming into effect, we have dozens of armed conflicts raging all over the world, we have homelessness, economic instability, political divisiveness, mass migration, all these things going on. What can we do? How can we fix this mess and get some peace? It seems like it's always just out of our grasp. It's just around the corner. Somehow if we could just smooth over that problem with our boss at work and a problem with our mother-in-law and just get maybe an hour's more sleep every night, no? Then we'd be all right and we could really focus on our spiritual life and everything would be okay. Well, what's the answer? Life is a ceaseless struggle. It looks like if we're not feeling that peace, if life is still so very stressful, maybe we haven't yet been able to fully turn ourselves over to the divine. Maybe we haven't yet allowed the Mother really to come into our hearts, to slay those demons. We haven't been able to step aside and let the divine do her work. Swami Vivekananda makes an interesting observation. He points out that the vast majority of people in every country, they believe that there will be a time, there will come a time when this world will become perfect, when everything will be settled, everything will become perfect, when there will be no disease, nor death, nor unhappiness, nor wickedness. And he points out it's a nice idea, and it's maybe good motive power to inspire and uplift the ignorant, he says. But if we think for a moment, we shall find on the very face of it that it cannot be so. He says it's actually impossible. How can it be, he asks? How can it be, seeing that good and evil are the obverse and reverse of the same coin? How can you have good without evil at the same time, he asks. It's not possible. A perfect life, he says, a perfect life is a contradiction in terms. Perfect is one thing and life is another. And it's a contradiction in terms. We can't have a perfect life. Life is imperfection. Life itself, he says, is a state of continuous struggle between ourselves and everything outside. And even everything inside, as it turns out. So this is it. Can we accept this? This is the world. This is our life. It is full of storm and stress. It is full of misunderstandings and understandings. It is full of hate and love. It is full of pain and pleasure. It's a mess. Swami Vivekananda says, this is Maya. This is Maya. And he goes on to define it. He says, Maya, it doesn't mean anything other than a simple explanation of the facts as they are. That there is this tremendous contradiction. Let me put it, read out his own words. Simply a statement of facts as they exist. That the very basis of our being is contradiction. That everywhere we have to move through this tremendous contradiction, that wherever there is good, there must be also evil. And wherever there is evil, there must be some good. Wherever there is life, death must follow as its shadow. And everyone who smiles will have to weep, and vice versa. So this is Maya. This is our condition. So the first step in moving towards a peaceful existence for ourselves, I think the first step is simply recognizing this fact and accepting it. Accepting that, well, in this world, in my life, things are not all going to be okay. I'm never going to line up all the dots just right. I'm never going to get everything just right in my own life, and the world is never going to be perfect. It's always going to be a mixture of these pairs of opposites. And simply accepting that fact is a first step, because a lot of our discomfort, a lot of our suffering comes from this resistance, this wail inside that says, no, I want it to be perfect. I want everything to be nice and right and beautiful in my life. if we can accept that it's never going to be so, that's a very powerful first step in our spiritual life to move through and beyond. So, is this pessimistic? Many people won't like this. They say, why are you so pessimistic? Everything is, be optimistic. See the good. All right. It's realistic, says Vivekananda, not pessimistic nor optimistic, realistic. We see that, yes, there's both good and bad. But he also says, listen to that voice. That quiet voice maybe, but proclaimed since the earliest times and still reverberating, coming down through the ages and reaching our ears. The voice of the great sage who proclaims, Shrinvantu Vishwe Amritasya Putra Ayedhamani Divyani Tastuhu Vedahametam Purusham Mahantam Aditya Varnam Tamasah Parastat Tameva Viditva Timrityumeti Nanyah Pantha Vidyate Anaya. Hear, ye children of immortal bliss, even you who live in the highest places. I have found the way by knowing him who is beyond darkness and shining like the sun. We can go beyond death. There is no other way. So, then you can object, well, so you're just trying to escape this mess by going to that transcendent reality. It's a kind of life-denying philosophy. And yet, it's not by escaping this world that we can find that infinite sun shining, that divine shining at the heart of everything. It is by going through it. Vivekananda puts it so clearly. He says, we have to work through it. The person who says that he will work when the world has become all good, and then he will enjoy bliss, is as likely to succeed as the man who sits beside the river, the Ganga, and says, I will ford the river when all the water has flown into the ocean. The way is not with Maya, but against it. And then he points out, again, talking about this voice, with this terrible fact before us, this fact of this uncomfortable reality of our life and the way this world is. In the midst of sorrow and suffering, even in this world where life and death are synonymous, even here, there is a still small voice that is ringing through all ages, through every country and in every heart. Daivi hesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mameva ye prapadyante maya metam tarantite. This is my Maya. It is divine, made up of the gunas, and very difficult to cross. Yet those that come unto me, those that take refuge in me, they cross this river of life. Again, come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. This is the voice leading us forward. Take refuge in me alone, says Sri Krishna to Arjuna in the Gita. Come unto me, all ye labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest, says Jesus in the Bible. So there is a way. This is the way of radical surrender. It's also a path of struggle, though. Don't think that we're going to escape struggle, but the form of that struggle changes. It's the spiritual struggle, the struggle to know ourselves, the struggle to consecrate ourselves utterly and completely to the divine. this path of radical surrender. I'm not completely pleased with the word surrender. Radical consecration, complete dedication. And as I started to mention, I think there are two steps in this. First, this acceptance, simply accepting the world for what it is, and accept ourselves for who we are. Accept that we have our limitations. Accept that there are still demons within us. Christianity, that's an emphasis of Christianity, or the old Christianity, that we are sinners. We are sinners. Well, we don't say we are sinners. We say we are children of immortal bliss. And yet, there is a grain of truth there. Yes, we have our defects. There are people who feel, well, how can I pray to God? How can I offer myself to God? I have so many defects. So this is the path of there's a line of psychotherapy in which they call it radical acceptance. We accept things, we accept it is what it is, without resistance. This painful life plus resistance causes terrible suffering. This painful life, if we can simply accept it as it is, we start to taste peace. And then, the second part, to throw ourselves on the mercy of the Divine Mother. Give her the power of attorney. Take complete refuge in her. Let her come in and slay the demons within us. Sri Ramakrishna used to tell a little story about a Durga Puja, the worship of the Divine Mother in a house, and there's a storeroom in the house, and a big storeroom where all the ingredients for the puja are kept, and people all go to the storeroom for the different foods, spices, flowers, sandal, everything that's needed for the worship ceremony. It's kept in the storeroom, and people go there to get it as they need it. And the master of the house has appointed someone to man the store and give everybody what they need. And somebody says, well, sir, I want to receive it from your hand. He said, well, how can I go there? There's already somebody there. I'm not going to go there. Somebody's already there handing out all the things. I don't need to go there. Only if that guy who's manning the storeroom, if he leaves, then I'll go and I'll hand out the things. So who's that guy manning the store? That's our small me, our small self. We're sitting here and we're trying to manage everything and we're handing everything out. So the Divine Mother is, okay, well, there's already somebody there. Somebody's already seated there in the heart. I can't come in. If that guy goes away, then I could come. We take refuge in the Divine Mother. Tam agnivarnam tapasa jvalantim vairochanim karma phaleshu jushtaam durgam devim sharanamaham prapadye sutarasi tarase namaha. We take refuge in her, Mother Durga, who is fiery in luster and radiant with tapas, who is the power belonging to the Supreme, who manifests manifoldly, who is the power residing in actions and their fruits, rendering them effective. O thou goddess, O thou mother skilled in saving, thou takest us across all difficulties. We bow down to thee. This taking of refuge, this really is the essence of the thing. When we say surrender, that's often, I think, an unfortunate translation of the word sharanagati, the Sanskrit word sharanagati, which means complete and utter dedication, taking refuge. And we can see how surrender sounds kind of like it starts with the same kind of sound, and there's R's there, and there's N's, and sharanagati, surrender. It sounds kind of similar. So it's in most of our literature, actually, these terms like Atma Samarpanam, offering oneself fully to the divine, or Sharanagata, koro, take complete refuge in the divine, is translated as surrender. Surrender yourself to the divine. There is that aspect of it, this resignation, this letting go. Let go and let God, as it were. But this active part is missing from the translation of surrender. So maybe we can actually, because we literally throw ourselves on the mercy of the divine. We dedicate ourselves with all our imperfections to the mother. We actively seek refuge. We seek shelter. Surrender suggests a kind of defeat. We have a battle and the loser has to surrender, right? So then surrender is for the weak. Vedanta is for the strong. So we don't want to surrender exactly, except that we surrender. We offer the lower self into the higher self. We'll offer our little self into the mother and gain infinite strength. In the yoga system of philosophy, there are certain prerequisites for spiritual life, the foundations of spiritual life. I think most of us have studied them. They are called the yamas and the niyamas. And one of these is Ishvara Pranidhana. These are the fundamental building blocks of spiritual life. Ishvara Pranidhana. We can call it sacrificing all to the divine. Dedicating ourselves completely and utterly to the divine. This is actually, we start out here. We start out with this, and when it becomes perfect, this is wonderful. When it becomes perfect, it leads to complete and total absorption in the divine. There's one seat right here. You can. Samadhi siddhihi Ishvara pranidhanat. From perfection in this dedication to the divine comes samadhi, absorption in the divine, perfection in spiritual life. But it's not so easy as it sounds to just do that, as we know. And Sri Ramakrishna makes a nice distinction. He points out that there are two kinds of seekers. And one of them he likens to a baby monkey, and one of them he likens to a cat, means a kitten. A kitten or a baby monkey. And I'll just quote a little from a conversation he was having. It was in 1883, it was December, and he had gone to Ishan's house, and one of Ishan's relatives, a young man named Shrish, was there, and Shrish was complaining that, where's the time for us to call on God? Where's the time for prayer? We don't have time. And Sri Ramakrishna says, that's true. Yes. And he recognizes that for Shrish at least, that intense longing for God has not yet come. When that longing comes, we will find the time to call on God. But then he tells him, and this is really an instruction to all of us, lay everything at her feet. What else can you do? Give her the power of attorney. Let her do whatever she thinks best. Then he gives this delineation of the two approaches. He says, it's no doubt necessary to practice spiritual disciplines. We have to do sadhana, meditation, and all that. But there are two kinds of seekers. The nature of the one kind is like that of the young monkey, and the nature of the other kind is like that of the kitten. The young monkey with great exertion somehow clings to its mother. Those of you who have been to the Himalayas, in the forest there, have seen, it's amazing, these monkeys, they jump from branch to branch, 50 feet up in the air, these tall trees, and they're jumping, going as they travel through the forest. They don't travel on the ground, they travel through the branches of the trees. And the mothers, they have their little babies holding on for dear life. They'll grab onto the fur, right? The mom's fur, it must be a pinch a little bit, but they're holding on for dear life as the mother's jumping 50 feet overhead from branch to branch, and they hold on. And so Sri Ramakrishna says, likewise, there are some seekers who think that in order to realize God, they must repeat his name or her name a certain number of times, meditate on her for a certain period, and practice a certain amount of tapasya, of intense spiritual disciplines. And such seekers make their own efforts to catch hold of the divine. They really struggle. They try really hard through their own efforts. But then you contrast that with the kitten. The kitten is not able to hold on to the mother. The mother simply picks the kitten up by the scruff of the neck and carries it around. And wherever the mother puts it, it stays there. And all it does is cry, meow, meow, cries for its mother. That's all it does. Sometimes the mother cat puts it on the bed, sometimes on the roof behind a pile of wood, or sometimes in a pile of ashes. She carries the kitten in her mouth here and there. Likewise, there are some seekers who cannot practice spiritual discipline by calculating about how many times they're going to repeat the mantra, how long they're going to meditate. All they can do is cry to God, cry to the divine with a yearning heart. And this yearning is the essential ingredient, of course. And he assures us, God hears their cry and cannot stay away, cannot keep herself away. She reveals herself to them. So struggle is essential. Struggle is essential in the beginning. I don't think we can recognize the beauty of the kitten attitude, completely dedicating ourselves, just letting God do as she wills with us. But how do we get there? How do we get there? We start with this monkey attitude. We start with holding on tight to the mother. And gradually, we start to find that mother is also holding us. And we start to be able to let go our hold just a little bit, and the mother starts to hold us a little tighter. And then when we can fully let go, then we find that the mother herself carries us. And then we're like the little boy who's walking across the rice fields, and there's these narrow bulks, and he could easily fall. And he holds on, he's holding on to his mother's hand, and if he lets go, he'll fall. But when the mother holds the boy's hand, and when in India, they don't hold the hand, they hold the wrist. You'll see the mom or dad, he'll grab the wrist, like that. So there's no way the kid's going to fall, right? When the Divine Mother holds us like that, then there's no more fear. Then we start to attain that peace. We start to taste that peace. This mood of utter surrender, of utter letting go and letting the mother carry us, that comes when we've tired out our wings. That's another beautiful story of Sri Ramakrishna. There was a bird sitting on the mast of a ship which was anchored in the harbor, and the bird was absent-mindedly sitting there, and meanwhile the ship raised the anchor and sailed out to sea. And when the bird came to its senses, it found only water everywhere. What to do? So it felt it better go find land. So it flies to the east, and it flies, and it flies, and it flies, and it can't find land anywhere. And it's getting really tired, so it comes back to the ship, back to the mast, and sits on the mast. Then, after some time, catching its breath, it tries again, and it flies to the west, and it flies as far as it can, and can't find land anywhere, just water, water, water. So it comes back, panting and resting. And then it realizes, well, I can go north. So it goes north, and it flies, can't find land anywhere, comes back to the mast. It still hasn't checked out the southern direction. So it goes to the south and flies as far as its wings can take it, and realizes there's no land here either. Then it flies back to the ship, sits on the mast, and sits there free from worry. It has tried its utmost. It has tried to find land. It has completely tired its wings. It realizes that actually it can't find land. And then peace, shanti. If the bird had sat there from the very beginning, it wouldn't have been able to be free from worry. It wouldn't have attained that peace. This is like the lazy the lazy way of taking refuge in God. We say, I surrender to God, let God do as she wills with me. But if we haven't struggled, we won't be able to genuinely say that. We won't be able to fully relinquish our self-will. Swami Vivekananda makes fun of this attitude. He says, you say every moment, thy will be done. Really meaning, my will be done by thee, O God. We say, thy will be done, but what we want is, thy will be done, but it should be actually what I want, not what you want. The infinite is working his own plans out. Even he has made mistakes, and you and I are going to fix it. The architect of the universe is going to be taught by the carpenters. He has left the world a dirty hole, and you are going to make it a beautiful place. This was in Alameda. He's talking in 1900. So he's poking fun at this false Sharanagati, this tamasic kind of lazy kind of surrender that comes from a state of inertia. Why in that state of inertia, the extremes look alike. Someone who's very lazy, really stuck in inertia, looks like they don't do anything. And the one who has attained union with the mother and has completely merged her will with the Divine Mother's will also may not do so much. But there's a world of difference between the two. There's an interesting tension that we see in the life of Swami Vivekananda between struggle and surrender. And we know how hard Swami Vivekananda himself worked, how he came to this country and lectured sometimes in the morning in one city and in the afternoon in another city, and constant lecturing, traveling, and fighting against racism, against the bigoted missionaries, and struggling to bring the life-giving message of Vedanta to the world. And he also was charging his disciples and his brothers to work, to struggle. Let me read a little bit of one of his great letters written to his Madras disciples in 1894, encouraging them to start the work of establishing the message of Vedanta and the service of the divine in suffering humanity. Feel, my children, feel for the poor, the ignorant, the downtrodden. Feel till the heart stops and the brain reels and you think you will go mad. Then pour the soul out at the feet of the Lord, and then will come power, help, and indomitable energy. Struggle, struggle was my motto for the last 10 years. Struggle still, say I. When it was all dark, I used to say, struggle. When light is breaking in, I still say, struggle. Of course, Vivekananda was a world teacher, setting in motion a new, shall we say it, a new dispensation, a new message, a new way of attaining the divine. So it required intense work. And really, he calls on all of us to participate in that struggle. For instance, to his brother disciple Swami Akhandananda in 1897, he writes, work, 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 I care for nothing else. Work, 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 even unto death. Let people see whether or not the touch of our Lord's feet confers divinity on man. It is this that is called liberation in life, when the last trace of egoism and selfishness is gone. I am a fighter and shall die in the battlefield. So here we see this emphasis on struggle and work, but not the kind of work that binds us, the kind of work that frees us. Why? Because we have to utterly relinquish any attachment to the results. As he says, first, pour the soul out at the feet of the Lord, and then work, and leave the result to the Lord, leave the result to the Mother. So this of course, it's kind of a different topic, but really we see how it's perfectly aligned with this idea of surrender. What do we surrender in the path of work? We surrender the right to determine the outcome of the work. All we can do is pay attention to the means. We can perfect the means as best we are able, work as best we are able according to the principles which we hold to be true and highest, that is love, unselfishness, seeing the divine in all beings. And then, with this kind of struggle, that I, which is that little me which is sitting in the storeroom, gets pushed out. And we let the mother come, and then it's the mother actually who does the work. So we see this side of Swami Vivekananda exhorting all of us to struggle, even in life, even in this world and in our spiritual life. And yet, he has this other side. You know, he would say, I never make plans. Plans grow and work themselves. I only say, awake, awake. He's not one for making plans. And again, we find towards the end of his life this amazing state of utter, we can only call it utter resignation to the Divine Mother. It was in 1900, he was in California, here in California, it was in Northern California, where we see this mood reach its fruition, I think. And he was hearing about some trouble in New York at the Vedanta Society. His brother disciple Swami Mahayogananda had come from India at his request and was helping him in this work of establishing the Vedanta movement, of teaching the Vedanta principles. And the president of the New York Vedanta Society, Mr. Francis Leggett, and Swami Abhedananda, they did not see eye to eye. They were clashing. Naturally, Abhedananda, he's the Swami from India, and he will have his ideas. And he's different. He's not Swami Vivekananda. He's his own man. So there were some clashes and troubles, and people were writing to Swami Vivekananda saying, hey, well, you tell Abhedananda to behave himself and be nice to Mr. Leggett and all that. And Swami Vivekananda would have none of it. He didn't want to get involved at all. And he writes this incredibly moving letter to Josephine MacLeod. And it's worth quoting from at some length. Let me read you just some excerpts. Work is always difficult. Pray for me, Joe, that my works stop forever and my whole soul be absorbed in Mother. Her works she knows. Then he says, I am well, very well mentally. I feel the rest of the soul more than that of the body. The battles are lost and won. I have bundled my things and am waiting for the great deliverer. Shiva, O Shiva, carry my boat to the other shore. After all, Joe, I am only the boy who used to listen with rapt wonderment to the wonderful words of Ramakrishna under the banyan at Dakshineshwar. That is my true nature. Works and activities, doing good and so forth, are all superimpositions. Now I again hear his voice, the same old voice thrilling my soul. Bonds are breaking, love dying, work becoming tasteless. The glamour is off life. Only the voice of the Master calling. I come, Lord, I come. Let the dead bury the dead. Follow thou me. I come, my beloved Lord. I come. Yes, I come. Nirvana is before me. I feel it at times, the same infinite ocean of peace, without a ripple, a breath. I am glad I was born, glad I suffered so. Glad I did make blunders, glad to enter peace. I leave none bound, I take no bonds. Whether this body will fall and release me, or I enter into freedom in the body, the old man is gone, gone forever, never to come back again. The guide, the guru, the leader, the teacher has passed away. The boy, the student, the servant is left behind. A remarkable Vivekananda who works so hard and telling us to struggle. And now, The old man means that one who thinks he is doing something. He is gone forever. And feeling that after all, he is just a boy sitting at the feet of his master at Dakshineshwar, hearing that same old voice, that thrilling voice of the master, that God-intoxicated sage of Dakshineshwar. He goes on, it's an interesting passage. He says, behind my work was ambition. Behind my love was personality. Behind my purity was fear. Behind my guidance, the thirst of power. Now they are vanishing and I drift. I come, Mother, I come, in thy warm bosom, floating wheresoever thou takest me, in the voiceless, in the strange, in the wonderland. I come, a spectator, no more an actor. O Joe, the blessedness of it. Everything is good and beautiful. For things are all losing their relative proportions to me, my body among the first. Om, that existence. We see how this total dedication to the Divine Mother, total consecration, gradually ripens. At first we're holding on tight, and then she makes us struggle like anything, and she makes us work in this world, and she makes us work to let her come in and take over. And when we are able to do that, finally it blossoms into this state. So he would go on. Just 2 months later, he would say, in a class in New York, he would teach, eternal, unquestioning self-surrender to Mother alone can give us peace. Love her for herself, without fear or favor. Love her because you are her child. See her in all, good and bad alike. Then alone will come sameness and bliss eternal. That is Mother herself when we realize her thus. Until then, misery will pursue us. Only resting in Mother are we safe. Here is the Mother, right here. Among us, gathered in her name. To rest in her presence. To let her do as she wills. To seek refuge ever at her feet. To know that in the end we shall all come back to her arms. Alas, says Vivekananda, what folly for men in this world to spend their days fighting and quarreling with one another as they do. But how long can they go on in that way? In the evening of life, they must all come home to the arms of the Mother. The great Bengali mystic Ram Prasad, he sang so many songs about the Divine Mother. And one of them, Sri Ramakrishna often used to sing this song expressing, let's remember he's expressing his own experience, that state when we see that the divine has become everything. The Mother has become everything and she does everything. And we are only the instrument. We are only her instruments. When we can make this total dedication, we become instruments of Mother's infinite love. We become instruments of Mother's infinite light. We become instruments of Mother's infinite peace. We cannot give light ourselves, but we can step aside and let the Mother's light shine. And this song, I'd like to read out the translation of this song. O Mother, all is done after thine own sweet will. Thou art in truth self-willed, Redeemer of humankind. Thou workest thine own work. People only call it theirs. It is you who work. People say, I do. They're wrong. It is you that hold the elephant bound fast in the muck, and you who help the lame person scale the loftiest hill. On some you bestow the bliss of Brahman, and yet others you hurl into this world below. You are the moving force, and I the mere machine. The house am I, and you the spirit dwelling there. I am the chariot, and you the charioteer. I move alone, as thou, O Mother, movest me. Om Sharanagata Dinartha Paritrana Parayane Sarvasyarti Hare Devi Narayani Namostute. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. O thou, the Savior of all who take refuge in thee, the lowly and the distressed, who takest away the sufferings of all, our salutations to thee, O Mother divine. Om, peace, peace, peace.